Guys, good morning. All right, so let me first take a login to your org. So yours is 208. All right. See, yesterday we talked about how we can manually share the ownership of a particular record from one user to another user. All right. I probably have one diagram for the same. Let me just try to find it out. Hmm. I think I do have one diagram, and that would help us, right, to understand this a little more. I just have to see for this. My permission sets profile, queues. Yeah, this one, the queues in the assignment rules. All right. See, we have seen that how exactly, how manually we can transfer the ownership, right? How manually we can transfer the ownership of a particular record from one user to another user, right? Let me just clarify this once again. If you remember, I tried doing this with account, right? I go with the account object, and then whenever you wanted to transfer the ownership manually, what you can do would be like, there's a field called owner, and there's a link called change. Just make a click and select that particular user to whom you wanted. Like, for example, I'll select user development for this, and if I would be saving this record. Now, as you can see, the ownership has been given to the development user. Now, and in the chatter section, we can track this, what actually has been happened with this record. So initially, this user has changed the ownership from customer user to the development user. And previous to this, like yesterday, so this user changed the ownership from training 208 to the customer. So everything has been recorded and we can find it out. I mean, if somebody wanted to see like how the ownerships has been transferred from one user to another user, he can obviously come over here and see this, these notes and everything. All right. Now understand, I wanted every one of you to understand one thing. Whenever we do this manually, we can do it for any object. First of all, we can do it for any object. So if I would like to elaborate, like if I wanted to transfer the ownership of a record from one user to another, there are two different ways to do that. You can do this manually, you can also do this automatically. All right. If I wanted to transfer the ownership of a record, I can do it manually. Yesterday we also did the same thing. I have repeated today itself, right? So we can do it manually and we can also do it automatically. Now, when we do it manually, when we transfer the ownership manually, we can do this for any object, any standard as well as any custom object. You can do it for any object. When you're trying to transfer the ownership of a record manually, you can do this for any object, right? I did this for account. I can do this for the case, contact, lead, opportunity, or are the custom objects, any one of them. Whenever we are transferring, for that you must be two. I mean, if you are trying to transfer the ownership, all right, either you should be the owner of that record or you should be the system administrator. Only in that case you can transfer. I cannot transfer if I'm not a system admin, by the way. I cannot transfer the ownership of a record which actually doesn't belongs to me. But if I am a system administrator, or maybe I am the owner of that record. चलो मैं system admin नहीं है, but even if I am the owner of that record, I can surely transfer the ownership. So whenever you are doing this manually, first of all, if we are transferring it manually, the way we learn right now, yesterday also we did the same thing. We can do this for any object. Could be any standard, could be any custom object. All right. Now, I mean, this was my point number one. Now, point number two would be like, whenever you wanted to do this automatically, if you wanted to transfer the ownership automatically, then what you have to do, you first of all would require to write down something called as assignment rules. You have to create something called as assignment rules. All right. For record sharing, we have written something called as sharing rules. If you wanted to share a record automatically, for that you have learned something called as a sharing rule. In the same way, whenever I wanted to transfer the ownership of a record, there are two ways to do that. The first is a manual transfer. The second is automatic transfer. Manually, I can do this for any object. Automatically, if I'm trying to do, I would first of all would require to create something called as assignment rules. So assignment rule is that feature of Salesforce, that functionality of Salesforce, where you can write certain rules, you can write certain conditions, you can impose certain criterias. And based on that criteria, based on that conditions, if that would satisfy business, I mean, the process would automatically transfer the ownership, right? So assignment rules is that tool in Salesforce by which, based on certain conditions, based on certain criteria, we could directly transfer, we can automatically transfer the ownership of a record. But then there is a restriction. The assignment rules can be written only either for a lead object or for a case object. You cannot create assignment rule apart from this to any other object. I cannot create the assignment rule for any another object. Assignment rules can be created only and only for lead and case. Let me try to show you something first of all, and then just give me a second. 1 second, guys. All right. I'll starting this discussion. Just give me a second. All right. So let me try to show you something. See, if we go to the setup menu and then build, and when we expand the customize, in the customize, you will going to see the objects, the standard objects preferably. When you make a click on the leads, you see something called as a lead assignment rule. And this is the link, this is the navigation to create the assignment rules. So if I wanted to create an assignment rule on lead, I'll go to the lead and I can see one thing, a lead assignment rule. Now, same with the case as well. If I would expand the case, see, if I would expand the case here also, I can see something called a case assignment rule. Now, if you try this with any another object, let me try the same, maybe with campaigns. Do you see anything called as campaign assignment rules? No. I'll try this with accounts. Do you see anything called as account assignment rules? You won't find it, and you won't find it anywhere. You're not going to find it anywhere else, because assignment rules, they could be created either for the lead on the case. That means if I wanted to automatically transfer the ownership, I can do this either for a lead object or for a case object. I could create, for example, I mean, obviously for the assignment rules, for the automatic transfer, you would require to create assignment rules, and they can be created only for these two objects, right? That is the first thing you should remember. That is the First thing you should remember. Now let's come to the second point. All right. As we have seen one thing, whenever we are transferring the ownership, we have seen two options: user, which was available for every object, which was available for every record of every object. And there was one more option called as queue, right? But queue is the option that is available like with the lead and case. And there are a few more objects where this option could appear. Every such object where you see the queue as an option is called as queue supporting objects. And there's a list of that. A few of the standard object and all of the custom objects. Few of the standard object and all of the custom object, they are called to be the queue supporting objects. They are called to be the queue supporting objects. So I can transfer the ownership of a record. I can transfer the ownership of a record either manually, either automatically, all right? Understand this. I can transfer the ownership of a record either manually, either automatically. I can transfer it to a particular user or to a particular queue. The user option is available with everyone. The user option is available with everyone. But particularly the option called queue, that appears only on the queue supporting object, all right? For example, see, yesterday itself we have seen, but I would like to revise this once again. If you go with the accounts, all right, you wanted to transfer the ownership of a particular record. If you try to change it, let's say manually, you will only see this user, user as an option. But if you try to do the same thing with the case, or maybe with the lead, let me try to open any of the case record. And now for this particular record of case, if I would like to transfer the ownership, I can see one more option, that is queue. Similarly with the leads as well, right? If you try it with the lead, if you wanted to transfer the ownership of this lead record, you will see two options over here, users and the queue. User and the queue. So this option queue, that means I could transfer the ownership of a record to a queue as well. So this option queue would appears only on the queue supporting objects. It is not going to be appear everywhere. There are a few standard objects and every custom object is called to be the queue supporting objects. All right, so this was another thing. This is point number 2. Let's consider that I could transfer the ownership of a record manually or automatically, whatever. Let's consider that the point number 1 was we can transfer it manually and automatically. That was our the first point of discussion. Now the second point of discussion is if you are transferring the ownership of a record, there are two options. You can transfer it to a particular user, could be a user, partner user, community user, whatever it could be, the type of user. And the second option is queue. You can transfer the ownership of a record to a particular user or to the queue. But queue, this option is not available for every object. This option, you cannot see this in an account, in the contact, in the campaigns, in the opportunities. This is available only with the queue supporting object. So there are a few standard object like lead and the case, and every custom object. This option is available over there. For the custom object, you need to enable certain permissions, but otherwise this option is enabled for, you can see this option over there as well. So this was point number 2. Now let's understand what exactly is a queue. If I can transfer the ownership, if I can transfer the ownership to a queue, then what is a queue? I know what is a user. If I would say I'm transferring the ownership of this record from this user to that user, you can easily understand. Right? It means user. What are user? Users are those persons, those who are having their what to say, login credentials inside an org. They are Salesforce users, by the way. But what is a queue? Now, if I would repeat the same point that I could transfer the ownership to a queue as well, then what is a queue? So queue basically is what? It is also a group of people. It is also a group of Salesforce users, all right? And I would tell you one thing. If I would like to make a difference between public group, if I would like to make a difference between public groups and queues, we're going to have a discussion into this. Public groups you already have studied, record sharing. And now you're learning something called as a queue. So we're going to have a comparative discussion about this as well. But let's first of all understand what is a queue. Queue is also a public group. All right. Queue is also a public group. Queue is also a group of Salesforce users. Public group is also the same thing, but they are being used in a different context. Public group is used for something else. Queues are used for something else. See, if something which is common in between queues and public group, both of them is the collection. Both of them is the collection of the Salesforce users. Both of them is the collection of the Salesforce users. Public group is the same. Public group is a collection of Salesforce users. Queue is also a collection of Salesforce users. So if I wanted to see what is common between these two, both of them is a collection of Salesforce users. But public group is used for record sharing purpose. If you remember this or not, I told you that like this, manual and automatic transfer. If you wanted to share a record, there are 3 different ways to do that. Manual share, automatic share, epic share. If I would go with the manual sharing, that could be done with the sharing button. If I wanted to go with the automatic sharing, I'll have to write something called as the sharing rules. Whenever you wrote a sharing rule, whenever you go for a automatic sharing, you can share the record only to a public group. We cannot share it to single user if you are doing with automatic sharing. So public group is something which, which is used during the record sharing process. So contexts are different, situations are different, uses are different. Otherwise, both of them, queue and public group, they have a similar property with them, that both of them consist of a number of Salesforce users. It's a collection, it's a group of the Salesforce users. This is something which is common in between both of them. But they are being used in a different context, in a different situation with a different kind of requirements. For the record sharing purpose, we use something called as public group. And for the assignment rules, we use something called as the queues. All right. So let's differentiate this. Now, queue is what? Queue is also a collection of users. Queue is also a collection of users. All right. Now let me try to make you understand about entire process. And this is something called as, you could understand this either as a sales process or maybe as a service process. All right. Let's try to understand this example. There's a company called as Dell & Corporation. And Dell is one of a leading manufacturer of electronic products such as laptops, mobile phones, printers, scanners, plotters, or maybe some other devices as well, computers, desktops, projectors, whatever. Let's consider this is one of the leading organization of laptop manufacturer. And then this is the set of those customer. For example, let's consider that Dell has recently launched one of his latest laptop. And these are the customers, the group of the customers, those who have purchased that laptop. Now, any one of them is facing certain issues with that laptop which is has recently purchased. So what this customer who is facing certain issues, what he's going to do? So he will try to raise a complaint. He will try to raise a case. He will inform this to the concerned persons that I have recently purchased this laptop. It is within the warranty period and I'm facing certain difficulties like, the battery of this laptop is draining very fast. And I think the only solution is to replace the battery. But because this is under the warranty, this is something you'll have to manage. I'm not going to purchase a new battery for this. because that is what an agreement you and me had signed, right? So he's going to generate a case. Now, this is a common interview question. How many different ways a case could be registered? How many different ways a case could be registered? So if you would go to a case record, if you go to a case record and you go to the origin, case origin is a pick list menu, and you can see that a case could be registered with phone, email, or web. Now see, this is customizable. If you have some another way, by which you allow your customers to raise the case. Maybe if you can differentiate, for example, between call and WhatsApp. All right, let's consider that phone would be considered as a call, that somebody could call us. We have given a toll-free number, and our customer, whenever they wanted to raise a complaint to us, they make a call to that. And then we also have given a WhatsApp number to them. So I could add an option over here like WhatsApp. So this list, although is customizable, this list also, although is a customizable list, but generally there are three options like phone, email, and web. They could go to the website. From there might be a page which would accept a case. They can write you an email. They can write you an email. Sorry, not wrote. They can write you an email over on that email. They could mention what is the problem they are facing, or they could raise the simplest way is like, is to make a call. So let's consider this customer was facing the issue. He raised a complaint probably by making a call. So there's a different section for this, somebody called as customer service representative. Normally, company would outsource this. And the call centers, there are so many different call centers, those who acts as a third party vendor, as an intermediate vendor. They would try to understand what is the case, what is the type of problem this customer is facing. Now this CSR would raise a case, would create a record inside the case object, case record. So this essentially should be a Salesforce user. This essentially should be a Salesforce user. Now he must have a kind of license. We would see to this what type of license he should have. In a normal cases, I mean, in a normal circumstances, if I would design a sales process and I have to create a user like CSR user, customer service representative, I would give him something called as standard user license. I would give him something called as a standard user license. And definitely I'm going to create a custom profile for him because I wanted to have a full control on his profile. I would manage what he could see. I can only give him a case object permission that he could, when he make a login to the Salesforce, he can only see like case, or maybe I could give him like case and chatters, or maybe like email, because I understand whenever this user would create a case, he should also have to acknowledge back to this user, maybe via email, or we can design an automation for that. Whenever a new record inside the case would be created or maybe updated, we can write down an email for that. That obviously could be, we have learned this. We learned the automations like workflows and the process builders. They are going to be decommissioned very soon, and I have to check with the spring 23 release whether they are still working or not. I'll have to check it out. But anyways, this can be done. So this user in real time, normally it is a user having standard user profile. That to be, we clone the profile, we create a custom standard user profile, and we give it to him. All right, that was in another part of discussion. I just wanted you guys to understand this. Anyways, now this user would take the case, would try to understand, and then he would create a record inside case object. All right, so this is like normal process. Let's iske aage kya hota hai. Now that case which has been created, see, that case must be assigned to somebody. That case must be assigned to somebody so that, like, let's say engineers, so that they could start working on the problem what the customer was facing. Now, there are two ways, either manually or automatically. Manually, you already have understand. Let's talk about the automatic transfer of the case record, right? So there's a policy in the organization that they are having different queues, service queues. They are having, let's say, different service queues. This is something called as Hyderabad service queue. This is Bangalore service queue. This is, let's say, Mumbai service queue. They are having a group of engineers inside that queue. All right, they are being clubbed into a group called as service queue. They are being grouped they are being grouped in a, what to say? I mean, they are clubbed together in an entity called as queue. Now, let's consider that this organization, Dell, has an internal policy that, when a customer would raise a complaint, this customer would raise a complaint, and this is the CSR who attended that. He would ask the customer, "Sir, can you please tell me your postal address?" And he said, "Let I belongs to this in particular state of Hyderabad." All right. So when the customer belongs to Hyderabad, just try to understand the example. This is just an example. So if the customer belongs to Hyderabad, if the city of customer equals to Hyderabad, that case should be automatically transferred to the Hyderabad service queue. This is just an example. Just try to understand this. If the customer belongs to Bangalore, that case should be automatically assigned to the Bangalore service queue. If the customer is saying that I live in Mumbai, that case should be automatically assigned to Mumbai service queue. This is what the process should do. And this should happen automatically. How this is going to be happen automatically? We are going to see that, don't worry. Because we would be that engineer, we would be that Salesforce person, those who are designing this whole process. So we would be responsible for this process of designing how the records are getting transferred automatically. Now the most important part. Understand. I see. I could directly take you to this. What I'm doing. I could directly take you to this, but you won't understand so many things. All right. See, let's consider this was the case. He has taken this case. Now he has created a case record, and you have written a rule. What type of rule? Assignment rule. This person, this CSR, customer service representative, has created a case record. This case record, and because you have created a rule, let's consider the customer belongs to Hyderabad. So because you have written a rule, you have created something called as an assignment rule. This case will automatically going to be transferred to the Hyderabad service queue. This case would automatically going to be get transferred to the Hyderabad service queue. All right. It would be waiting over here. Now this Hyderabad service queue have 3 engineers. All right. Just try to understand the example. There are 3 engineers. Akash and let's say Bhagyashree and Kajal. These are the 3 engineers. Now, right now, at this moment of time, all of them, all of them are busy. Akash is also doing something. He's being working on some previously assigned task to him, and similarly Bhagyashree and Kajal as well. All 3 of them are busy. So where does this case would going to reside? It would reside inside that queue. Which queue? Hyderabad service queue. It would remain over there. Now, if you would go to this case and you would see who is the owner of this case, so you would going to see Hyderabad service queue would be the owner of this. So this case is actually waiting. It is on the pending. It's actually on the pending state, but it is waiting somewhere. Where? To the queue. Now let's consider ki Akash has finished up his job and he raised that I am now free. If you have something, you can assign it to me. All right. There are 2 ways to do that. I'm going to talk about that practically. Omni-channel and manual transfer. I'm going to talk about this. But अभी एकदम ज़्यादा नहीं बताऊंगा मैं कुछ चीजें अभी पेंडिंग रखता हूं and then I'm going to show you जब हम इस पे जाएंगे. All right. See. So Akash raised this that I'm free now. And if you have certain work for me, you can definitely give it to me. So this case would now be assigned to Akash. Previously, who was the owner? Hyderabad service queue was the owner. Why? Because the case was residing over there. right? Case was residing over there. So owner was Hyderabad service queue. Now, because Akash raised this, then I'm free and I can take this up. Now, this case would be assigned to Akash. So when this case would be assigned to Akash, this means the ownership of this is going to be get changed. Previously, the owner was Hyderabad service queue. Now owners has been changed and the ownership has been given to Akash. So this is something called as the automatic transfer of ownership. This is something called as the automatic transfer of ownership. So this is all I am going to demonstrate to you. This is going to be all what I am going to demonstrate to you guys. All right. All right. I hope every one of you have understood this. What? This person creates a case on behalf of a customer. Customer called to this person and he explained that यार देखो मैंने अभी एक लैपटॉप लिया था और उसका बैटरी ठीक से काम नहीं कर रहा है. He said to him, don't worry, sir. If it is under warranty and all, we're going to have a full replacement for you. All right, let me create a case record. Let me create a complaint on behalf of you inside my system. And somebody in our team would definitely going to have a contact with you. I would just require a few details of yours. He would ask, "Ki aapka city kya, aapka address kya?" Then he create a record. Now he create a record. Then beyond that, there's an automation that we have written. हम जो कि developers हैं, हम जो कि system administrators हैं, Salesforce administrators हैं. हमने एक रूल लिख रखा है. कैसे लिखा है वो सब पे आने वाले हम लोग. अभी आप प्रोसेस को समझो. हमने एक रूल लिख रखा है कि जैसे ही इसने और इनमें से किसी ने भी केस में एक रिकॉर्ड क्रिएट किया, बेस्ड ऑन सिटी ऑफ दैट, अगर सिटी इक्वल्स टू हैदराबाद, सो दिस केस रिकॉर्ड इज ऑटोमेटिकली गोइंग टू रूटेड टू हैदराबाद. अगर मान के चलो कि सिटी जो है वो कस्टमर की सिटी जो है वो बैंगलोर है, तो this case record would automatically going to be routed, automatically going to be given to the Bangalore service queue or maybe to the Mumbai service queue. All right. So this is going to be happen automatically. Kaise? Because we are going to write something called as assignment rules. So the assignment rule would going to take care of this. Okay, this should be get transferred automatically. All right. So फिर ये it would going to stay for a while inside the queue. Now queue is what? Queue is also a kind of public group, but public group ना बोलते हुए उसे मैं ऐसा बोलूंगा कि queue is what? Queue is also a collection of Salesforce users. Now, any one of them could take the responsibility of this. There are, let's say there are 30 users inside the queue. Any one of them could take this responsibility, right? Whoever feels कि यार I can do that, would take it, मैं ले लेता हूँ. तो जैसे आकाश है या फिर भाग्यश्री या फिर काजल, this is going to be assigned to any one of them. So now there are two ways to do that. एक last चीज सुन लो अभी. There are two ways to do that. Either manually. Akash would manually take it. I'll take it this. This is from this onward, this is going to be my responsibility. I take it on my shoulder. Bhagyashri can do this. Kajal can also do this. These guys could manually take this responsibility. I'm going to take it. No problem. I would going to handle this case. This is the first way. The another way, there's again an automation over here called as omni-channel. That omni-channel is a feature of sales service cloud. What you are learning right now is also a service cloud. What I am explaining you is the case assignment. Case assignment comes under service cloud. Similarly, we could design something called as a lead assignment, but that would going to come inside the sales cloud. So, this assignment rule actually is a feature of sales and service cloud. This process could be automated. It would going to see like whether Akash or Bhagyashri or Kajal, any one of them, whether they are free or they are going to be free under certain time, maybe like after 1 hour, maybe he's going to free. After half an hour, she is going to be free, or maybe after 15 minutes. So it would going to decide this automatically to whom I should assign this. So if you have written an automation for that, this is something called as an omni-channel. So omni-channel work over here. This is the place where omni-channel would. It would help you to decide, it would help you to assign automatically a lead or a case to a particular person in the queue. That is what the omni-channel actually does. All right. But that's an extensive feature, I'm not going to explain you more about this. I've just given you an introduction. If you want, you can definitely explore that. But I would going to do this manually. All right. So manually, so what would happen initially would be like, when this was assigned, if it was assigned to the Hyderabad service queue. So the ownership of this case, the owner of this case record, it would be Hyderabad service queue. So Hyderabad service queue would become the owner. Or maybe it was assigned initially to the Bangalore service queue. So the Bangalore service queue would become the owner of this record. All right. Till the time any user inside the queue would say, okay, I'm going to take this. So now if Akash would take this responsibility, so the ownership is going to be get transferred from Hyderabad service queue to the Akash. If Bhageshri would take it, the ownership is, and you are going to track this in the chatter. Chatter में दिखता है जैसे मैंने आपको दिखाया अभी. So initially, this would be like, as soon as this has been created, it is going to be get assigned to the Hyderabad service queue. Now, after that, Bhageshri has taken this responsibility. So Bhageshri would become the owner. So ownership is going to be get transferred automatically. So how this whole mechanism would work, how we are going to write the assignment rules and everything, that we are going to complete in the tomorrow's session. I hope that is clear with everyone. Yes. Any questions? Let me give you this command. Now you can unmute yourself if you wanted to ask anything. Yes. Any questions, guys? Any questions? All right, then. Thank you so much for joining. Have a good day.